Welcome everybody. Happy Saturday. Welcome to the second episode in our Saturday Anything Goes series. For those of you who may be new, my name is Linda and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! And today what I want to share with you is a sweet little project that doesn't take much time and can be used to welcome a new baby, or with a change in the sentiment. You could easily use it for an Easter card as well. It features our sweet little something stamp set, and I'm going to bring that in so that you can see it. And I'm excited to show this to you because this is layered stamping, and that's what I wanted to show you today. A lot of people are a little intimidated sometimes by stamp sets that require you to layer 2 or 3 stamps on top of each other. My goal today is to show you just how simple that is. And to help me with that, I received just yesterday, ta-da! And pardon the glare, but this is Stampin' Up's Stamparatus. And this is really going to help me make sure that my stamps are lined up straight. Now the card that I did last night, I'll bring that up for you, I did not use the Stamparatus on. So you definitely can layer it without using a Stamparatus, and it's really easy to do with either of the methods. All right, things that we're going to need today. Oh, and hi, Jean. Thank you for joining us. So things we'll need today are, first of all, a card base. And mine is Blushing Bride cardstock. And I cut this at 4 1/4 by 11 inches and then scored it at 5 1/2, folded it, and burnished. And that's what gives me that nice flat card base. And then I stuck everything else inside. Other things that we're going to need are something to stamp our bunny on. So I have some Whisper White cardstock. This measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches. And that allows ample room for us to stamp our bunny. And then we'll be cutting it out using the largest of our layering ovals, scalloped ovals. So as you can see, I'll put that right here, and it gives me plenty of room not only to stamp my image, but to cut it out. Then we're going to need some glitter paper. This is our Dazzling Diamonds, and I'm going to show you how you can color it using your stamping blends. So because I didn't have any pink glitter paper, I was able to take my blends and just color around the outside edge of it, and that's what gave me a nice color to frame my focal image. And so you'll need a piece of this that is at least 2 5/8 by 5 1/2 inches, and that'll give you ample to cut it out using the largest of the ovals from that same Layering Ovals die set. You're going to need a piece of Designer Series paper, and I used our floral one that has all the in colors, and so this is powder pink. It also has a lovely other side, so if you didn't want quite so dramatic a floral, you could definitely go with the more muted design. I also have another sheet of the glitter paper, and this is cut at, this one is cut at 2 5/8 by 5 1/2. The oval, you just needed a piece that was at least 2 3/4 or 3 inches, I would say, by 5 inches to cut that. So this, what we're going to do with this piece is we're actually going to layer it behind the designer series paper. And what that will do is give us this lovely little border of paper. Now, I did not color this one with the blends. I left it white. And the reason is it's so iridescent that it kind of picks up the pinks a little bit. So I wanted that extra bit of shine to really come through. And then the last thing that we need is a sentiment strip. And I just have a piece of scrap. This is a 1/4 inch long, and you'll need it to be at least 3.5 inches long. This is quite a bit longer than that, but we'll just be cutting off the edges. To decorate our card, we're also going to be using some of our basic pearl jewels, and I'm going to show you how, using the blends, you can also color those. And that's what I used for my sweet little bunny's eyes. I really wanted them to be shiny, so I went ahead and colored them in. And then up here in the upper left corner, you'll see that I used some of our enamel dots. And other than some Tombow liquid glue and some Stampin' Dimensionals, that's everything we're going to need for the card. Hi, Eileen. Thanks for joining. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to put everything away except for my Whisper White panel, because we're going to get started with our stamping. And as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of using my stamping platform. Again, this is called the Stamparatus. And what's lovely about this is it has a hinged window that just barely fits underneath my camera. But there's also a second one that I don't have attached. So you can actually layer stamps on both sides of this, because what I can do is I can take this out. Let me turn it this way. There we go. So I can take this out, and I could have my, sorry about that, I could have my stamp, original stamp on this side and another stamp on this side, and simply rotate and flip it over. And you can do that for both of the sides, the top and the bottom, or side to side. Now, the other thing that I did, it comes with this wonderful foam mat that's great for our photopolymer stamps, which is what we're using today. If you have rubber stamps, we call them clear mounted stamps, then you would take this away and put the straight on, you would put your paper straight on the solid grid paper at the very bottom. But since we're going to be using our photopolymer, I need that extra bit of cushion, so I have my foam mat. The other thing is, I've heard from some demonstrators that because the hinge up here sits up a little bit, if they put their paper flush against the edge, that they're having to press down a little hard to get a good impression. Now, you can solve that easily by moving your paper over more towards the center, but then if your paper moves, it's hard to know exactly where you were if you've got that foam mat. So I came up with my own little solution. Very low tech. I simply took a piece of cardboard, then, and cut it to fit, but it gives me just enough height that now I'm able to go ahead and put my paper right up against the corner there. So even if it moves, I know I can always bring it right back up here and it'll be lined up. And that way I have closer contact of my stamp to the paper. So I would try it without the cardboard piece or whatever you might have around to use first to see how it stamps. Yours may stamp just fine. I tend to have a lighter pressure, but if you're having a problem with the very left-hand part stamping correctly, go ahead and put that shim in there and see if that helps you. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, as I mentioned, this is 3 layers stamping. So I'm going to open this up and pull out my stamps here. And what you'll see is, and let me just bring this out for a minute, put it against the white. I think you'll see it better. So we have 3 layers of stamps. We have a very detailed layer, we have a middle layer, and then we have what we call our bottom layer. It is a more solid stamp. And you would think you would stamp the bottom layer first, but I'll show you a little secret. If you stamp the topmost layer, which is usually the darkest, your most detailed layer, typically you do in the darkest ink, it's going to make it easy to see through your stamp when you line it up. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull off my paper here. And as I said, this is our most detailed one. And then we have this one. And then we have our solid one. All right, so I'm not going to start with the solid one. I'm going to put that aside. And if you ever are not sure, once you've taken your stamps off, which ones go with which, just look at the stamped image on the plastic sheet here, the acetate sheet, and that will help you to determine, okay, does this one go here? Does this one go here? So you'll be able to see right through to see which ones are which. All right, so I'm pulling all these off and just laying them down, and we'll bring our Stamparatus back in. Now my most detailed layer, as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and use it first, and I'm going to stamp it in my darkest color. So I'm going to put this on here, keeping in mind that I'm going to be cutting this out with my scalloped oval, so I want to make sure I have enough room on the sides, the top, and the bottom to do that. So if I put it right in the center there, I should be fine. And then I'm going to close the window, gently press, and it will adhere it to the window. And notice how my card stuck, but I'm not worried about that because I know it goes right up there in the corner. The inks we're going to be using today, there's 3 of them. We're going to be using our Blushing Bride, that's our darkest ink. Our Powder Pink, which coordinates with our Designer Series paper. And then for my lightest shade, a very pretty pink Pirouette. And then I've got my trusty Stampin' Chamois to clean off my stamps. I'll open up my ink pad and I'll gently go ahead and put down a layer of ink. And then I'm paranoid about getting extra ink on my paper, so I'll just clean that up with my chamois. And then I'm going to lift this over, make sure I'm lined up in the corner there, and apply gentle pressure for just a couple of seconds, making sure that I have contact with the paper. And then I'm going to go ahead and lift it up, and you can see it there. Now, if I wasn't happy with that, if I thought, you know, I want just a little more definition, I can ink it again. And because I know my paper's in the uppermost left corner and I didn't move my stamp at all, I can just bring it back and stamp it again. Hi, Lori. Thank you for joining. And there we go. Easy breezy. Now I'm going to give this a quick wipe with my chamois just to get most of the ink off. Peel this one away and bring in my second layer, which is this one. I feel to make sure I've got the rough side here so I know that goes down, not the smooth side. And then I'm just going to drop this on there. And I'm going to, because I use dark ink to start with, it's easy for me to line up. And where I'm lining up are the space between his feet, the space between his arms, the face, and then that little cutout in his ear. So once I see that, and I'm pretty happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and close my window. Put my paper back where it goes, and this time we're going to use our second darkest ink, which is our powder pink. So I'll flip that open, ink up my stamp, and press it down. Again, gentle pressure, you don't have to push hard, just making sure the stamp is contacting the paper. And I'm going to lift it up. And as you can see, now I have my second layer. Again, if I wanted a little more ink, I could ink it up again, but I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe off my stamp. And now our last layer, the lightest layer, goes down. Now this one obviously doesn't have detail, but I can feel the edges here. So I'm going to flip it over and line it up. Lining up those same spots between the arms, between the legs, and making sure I'm going all the way around where it's already stamped. And also making sure my paper is where it needs to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip over, pick up our stamp, put our paper back down, and now we're going to use our lightest color, which is our pink pirouette. Sorry about the glare, gang. All right, now this one I'm going to go ahead and ink up, just making sure the whole thing is inked up. Making a mess while I do, but that's okay. I can wipe it up. Other people say they have no problems with stamping, even though there might be some ink on the lid, because it's down lower than what your stamp is. Your stamp has some thickness to it, but I guess I'm a little OCD when it comes to that. So I'm going to go ahead, lift up, and there's my sweet little bunny. Now, as he dries, he's going to soften a bit, or she, whichever it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this aside now to dry while we work on the rest of our card. I can also clean off this stamp and then put my Stamparatus away. And I will come back and take that off a little later. But as you can see, the Stamparatus works really well when you're talking about doing your layered stamping. All right, I'm also going to close up my ink pads because otherwise I will stick my fingers in it and get ink all over my card. So it's always good to take just a moment and do that. And now it's time for us to get down to, let's go ahead and start assembling our card. So I'll bring in the one I already did, just so we'll have it as a reference while we're going through this. And I'll bring in all of our pieces. Ooh, that glitter paper gets everywhere. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glimmer paper, and this is going to go down flush left. And then on top of that, I will then glue the designer series paper. And because glitter paper can be a little difficult to get to stick sometimes, I'm using my Tombow Mono liquid glue. It's a very strong glue. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a goodly amount, but not too close to the corners. I don't want a bunch oozing out. And then I'm going to stand my card on the side, which will make it easier for me to make sure that I am flush left, and I can also feel the top and the bottom. And your Tombow gives you a little bit of wiggle room before it dries, so you can make sure that you've got it all lined up. Okay, let's go ahead and put our designer series paper, and I always put mine on upside down. This is not quite as directional, but for me, the flowers should go like this. So you want to make sure that your designer series paper, if it is directional, is going in the right direction before you glue it down. And again, I'm going to stand my card on the side and bring it all the way down, making sure it's flush top, bottom, and left, and then giving it a good press. And now we have that nice little strip of bling that adds some interest to the card. All right, I'm going to put this aside for a minute because now, since we're going to work on our focal image, I want to show you how I colored in the glimmer paper so that it gave me a little bit more of a colorful backdrop for my focal image. And for that, I'm going to bring in some scrap paper here that I have handy and my stamping blend. And this is the dark pink pirouette. So if you remember, I used pink pirouette as the base layer on my rabbit. So this will tie in nicely with it. And it has two tips. It has a nib tip for fine point and a brush tip. And I'm going to use the brush tip. So I'll pull off. And you want to, I don't have to color this whole thing in. I only need to color the very edges because that's all that's going to peek through. So you never want to go straight down. You always want to go more towards the side. And to prevent damaging my tip, because this glimmer paper is really rough, I'm going to apply just the lightest pressure. And I'm just going to stroke over it a few times. I can always go back and add more color if I need to. But since you just see a little bit of this peeking out, don't really have to worry too much about the coverage. But just a little more here, just to make sure. So again, be very careful because you don't want to damage your brush. I've done this a few times and so far it's looking, my brush is still looking pretty good. I'm going to get that glitter off of it because it will stick to it. And be sure to put your cap back on and store it flat. Okay, so now we've got our oval done. It's time for us to go ahead and cut out our bunny. So here's my bunny. I'm going to take the largest oval and put it down like that and run it through my Big Shot. Now, I'm not going to pull my Big Shot into the frame because it will knock against my camera and you guys will get dizzy from the wobble. So I've got it right here to the side. Just going to go ahead and run it through. And I tried to make sure that he was pretty centered. So I got that. Run it through the Big Shot. Don't worry about any of the crackling noises you may hear. That's perfectly normal. Bring it back into shot. Oh, and you know what, guys? I did that wrong. I was supposed to use the scallops because otherwise you're really not going to be able to see the glimmer paper behind. Not to worry. I've got my scallop right here. I can just lay it back over the top and run it through. So, be right back. Just make sure I have it lined up right. And I'll run it through. Oops, don't move. Okay, stay. Here we go. And there we have it. No harm, no foul. I was able to get it cut out. So what we're going to do is we're going to adhere this to our glimmer paper. And as you can see, by cutting that scalloped edge on the white focal panel, it left just enough of a border of the glimmer paper we colored with the pink pirouette to show through. I'm going to again use my Tombow to adhere this down to make sure that I get a good, snug, tight fit. And I'm being pretty generous with it, but again, staying away from the very edges. If you do have some glue that oozes out, no worries, you can use your glue eraser to get rid of it. All right, so there we have it. Now we need to take and adhere this down to our card. And to do that, I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals because I want it propped up just a little bit. Make sure this is dry. Give it a good firm push. And then I'm just going to use 3 at the top edge and 3 at the bottom edge. Should give me plenty of coverage. If you wanted to put 3 across the middle, you certainly could. No worries, but this worked really well for me last night. So I'm just poking in with my fingers to help loosen that backing. Peel those off. And let me pull this down, making sure that I have it pretty straight and my bunny the right side up. And just like I think I showed people during my Wednesday night, when I'm working with dimensionals, I have enough room that I can put my fingers in back here to hold it off the paper with my fingers. So that gives me some extra time to make sure I have it lined up before I then press it down. And there you have it. Okay. Now I want to, as you can see, layering the stamps did give him eyes, but I want to go ahead and do the colored pearls for you. So again, I'm bringing in my pink pirouette, the brush edge, and I'm simply going to gently color a couple of these pearls. And while those are drying, I also have a little bow. I think we got these last year. They were part of a suite that we could get, but they are still available in the catalog. And this is powder pink. They came in the in colors. So this is what I'm going to use just to give a little more cuteness. Get the backing off. They have them on there really well. There we go. I'm just going to decide where I want this. And a lot of times I find it easier to pull the card up so that I'm looking directly head on at it and then pop it down. Okay. Our pearls should be dry. So I'm going to go ahead and pick them up. Sometimes I can do it with my tweezers. That evidently is not the case this time. So I'm bringing out, yes, Lori, you guessed it, the pokey tool. Sometimes it's just easier to sneak underneath it and pick it up that way. These little pearls, though, I tell ya. Okay, and then I'm going to go right over the eye and, oh, good grief. try that again. Right over the eye and press down. Okay, that one doesn't want to stick, so let's do the other one. Right there. Oh, for pity's sake. Well, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. If it doesn't want to stick, I'm just gonna put a teeny dab of my liquid glue. Even our mini glue dots are a little too big for this. So just a little bit there. And right. Where's his eye? Right there. Okay. And now I should be able to stick these down. Yep, that worked. Where'd my other one go? He went away, so we'll just color another one. Blow on it to make it dry. And, well, there we go. Down we go. I don't know why it insists on sticking to my finger, but we'll do that again. All right. And when it dries, you won't be able to see that glue. Oh, for pity's sake. I wonder if that was the one that didn't want to stick in the first place. Third time's a charm, right? Okay, this time I made sure I got right underneath it to pull up the adhesive. You know, you guys ever have one of those days where everything wants to stick to you that you don't want? Lint, dog hair. Well, dog hair, I don't mind so much. Okay, I'm leaving it alone. There it is. All right, so we've got our cute little bunny. All that's left now is to stamp a sentiment. And yesterday I did the sweet little somebody one, and this would be for like a baby card. But this time I think I'll pick one of the other ones. So let's see what we've got here. We've got Hip Hop Hooray and Happy Easter. Oh, I don't have an Easter card. Let's go ahead and do an Easter one. And I'll bet I forgot to bring my blocks in with me. But you know what? No worries, because we have our Stamparatus, right? Normally I wouldn't pull it out for something this small. But hey, it's here. I need it. So here we go. So we just need to take our sentiment strip, line it up where we want it, put our sentiment down. Would help if I took that one up, and make sure it's centered, because I am going to want a little bit on the left and right. Lay it down, and I think we'll go ahead and ink it up in powder pink. I just got my uninked inking spots last night. Boy, wouldn't that come in handy for a small stamp like this. So you know what I'll be doing after we're done here. All right. I'm going to go ahead, lay it down. Gentle pressure. And there we go. So we can take that. Now, isn't really on there very central. So I'm going to do it again. And wipe off my stamp. Because while it was okay that way, I really want there to be some space at the top and the bottom so that that sentiment really gets set off. So let's try it here. And we'll ink it up again. See how big a mess I can make. Not too bad that time. And stamp it down. Oh yes, I like that much better. All right, put my Stamparatus away. And we just need to decide how long we want our sentiment to be. So I'm thinking, I guess I should pull it down to where you guys could see it, yes? I'm thinking right about that. So I'm not going to cut much off of the left other than to angle it, but I am going to cut the right about there. Bring in my scissors and cut at an angle that way, and I will cut a little bit off that way. Yep, I like that. Just like that. And this I also went ahead and put up on dimensionals. And the main reason for that is because I've got several layers going on here, I didn't want it to kind of buckle. And I found that by using my Stampin' Dimensionals, it worked just fine. So I only need two. One there and one there. And I'll be able to sit that right down there. Now, if you're not happy with the white edges, if you think that doesn't stand off the paper enough, you could always just ink them up with any of the colors of ink that you've used for your card. I like it that way, so I'm just going to go ahead and peel off the backing. See, they stick to everything. I'm just having one of those days. And I'm going to pull this up so that I can see what I'm doing. And just gently lay it down, and that way I can maneuver it a little if I need to. But nope, I'm pretty happy with that. And then on our other card, we also use some of these enamels. So I'm going to go ahead and run those down the left-hand side. So I'll use two big ones and one small one. You also could use rhinestones if you'd rather use rhinestones. Come here, heart, you don't belong on there. Or you could also use pearls, colored or white. It just really depends on your designer series paper. You just want to be sure that it does show up, at least somewhat. It's very subtle here, but you can still see it. All right, so that's our card for today. We made the one I made last night, Sweet Little Sun Bunny, will be for congratulations for parents on the birth of a child. But this one, I think I will send to one of my granddaughters for Easter. Any questions out there? All right, well, we'll go ahead and end the live video. If you missed a part of it, I will have it out on YouTube by tomorrow. So just look for the Saturday Anything Goes series on Facebook. You'll also be able to see it on my blog which is cardsbywinnie.wordpress.com. I want to thank everybody for taking time out to join us. If you need any supplies at all, I'd love to have you shop with me, and you can reach my shop again through my blog, cardsbywinnie.wordpress.com. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of the afternoon.